Assalamu alaikum to all of you. We are discussing about force, and in the last class we already discussed about the contact force, non-contact force, effect of force, and how we can calculate the resultant or net force. Before discussing the further, let's revise what we already discussed in the last class. What is force? Push or pull acting on an object is called force. There are two types of force: contact force and non-contact force. When both the object are in contact with each other, then there is a contact force, and when there is no contact between the object, then that is called non-contact force. The example of contact force is tension force, spring force, force of friction, normal force, and there are few examples of non-contact force that are gravity, electric, and magnetic force. What they are we already discussed in the previous video. After that we discussed about the effect of force. What are the effect of force? A force can change the speed of an object, change the direction of an object, change the state of an object. State means suppose an object is in motion, it may come in rest when we apply force on it, or any object is it at rest, when we applied force on it, then it will become in motion. And due to the effect of force, the shape of an object can also be changed. The one thing which doesn't change and which cannot be changed ever is the mass of an object. And after that we discuss about how we can calculate the resultant force or net force. If both the force are in same direction, then we have to add the magnitude of force. What are magnitude? 5 Newton means 5 is the magnitude and Newton is the unit or SI unit of force. And when the force are in opposite direction, then we have to subtract it. Suppose this force is of 9 Newton and this force is of 4 Newton, then the resultant force is of 5 Newton this side toward the right side. Now let's discuss about the types of friction. There are generally 3 types of friction: static friction, sliding or kinetic friction, and rolling friction. Static friction is the maximum value of frictional force. Static force is generally there when any object is at a stationary or rest position. When we applied force on an object, if that force is overcome the static force, then that object will start moving or will come in motion. Suppose the static force of any object is 50 Newton, and when we applied 25 Newton of force, then that object also applied 25 Newton of static friction on us, but it does not change or does not come in motion. But when we increase the force, suppose we applied 35 Newton in force, then that object also applied 35 Newton of force on us and it will not move. Similarly, when we overcome the force of static friction, then that object will start moving. It means that to move that object, we have to apply the force which should be greater than the 50 Newton. Once the object will move, then we don't have to, once the object overcome the force of friction, that it will come in motion. Next is sliding, or which is also known as kinetic friction. When any object is sliding, then the friction act there, that is the sliding friction. To two surfaces press each other, and this is the motion of an object. They don't want to that object will move continue. The sliding friction is less than the static friction. Suppose any object is in rest. When we suppose this is a box, this is at rest, and when we apply little bit force to overcome, it is at rest. When we apply force, it is not moving initially. Once we overcome the force of static friction, then it will move. And similarly, we can say that once when we overcome the static force of friction, then we don't have to worry, we have to apply less force as compared to that. In simple word, we can say that the sliding friction is less than the static friction. And the last one is the rolling friction. Suppose any object is there and it is rolling on the surface. When these two objects are in contact, then this area come in contact. And we already discussed about the elevation and depressions in the previous class. They interlocking this surface. Due to the interlocking, they resist the motion of an object. In the case of any circular cylindrical object like this pen, it will move. Once we have to apply little force as compared to the that box, because here there is a line contact between this book and this pen or marker. And the rolling friction is less than as compared to the sliding friction. I think you already observed, suppose you have a suitcase and it doesn't have wheels in it. When you are pulling it, then it will require more force as compared to the suitcase which have weight in it. Similarly, we can say that to reduce the friction, we have to introduce tires and wheel. This is all about the different types of friction. Thank you.